AI is reshaping industries globally. Today, we explore its impact on India and Germany.
Artificial intelligence is no longer fiction.
Across industries, AI promises unprecedented efficiencies.
But it comes with whispers of fear.
Job losses.
Human irrelevance.
In a global economy grappling with slow growth,
routine, mundane tasks, the very backbone of outsourced IT services, now at risk. Can AI offer cost-effective solutions?
The Pac-Man effect, jobs, intellectual property, even energy consumption. What does it devour next?
India's IT landscape faces a pivotal moment. Adapt or be left behind.
India isn't stepping back, it's stepping up.
A synergy of semiconductors, data centers, and IT solutions forms the path forward.
This is the dawn of strategic AI self-reliance.
Can AI be harnessed without erasing human roles?
आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस और एस्पिरेशनल इंडिया की डबल ताकत भारत के पास है.
The playoff begins.
In this playoff, we will be raising crucial questions about job displacement, economic implications, and sustainability in the global context. Let me call on stage Stephan Baier, partner and global industry sector lead, Supplier MHP. Thank you so much, sir. Anand Ramamoorthy, MD Micron India. So we'd like to call you on stage. Dr. Niehues, Head AI for Language Tech, Institute of Anthropomatic. Harshul Asnani, President, Europe Tech Mahindra. Mr. Debashish Bishoy, CEO Bosch SDS. And the match referee for this one, my colleague, R. Sridharan.
Thank you, Meha and Padmaja. I see that we have a lovely panel this morning. It's a 360-degree on AI because we have someone who sells technology, we have someone who researches AI, we have someone who makes chips, then we have someone who's actually using AI for consumers. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. So I'm going to start, Harshul, with you because while there's been a lot of hype over AI over the last 2 years, especially since OpenAI, ChatGPT broke onto the scene in 2021, there is now a sudden skepticism on whether AI is going to deliver all that's being talked about. In fact, we have a new book that's come out in the US by two Princeton profs saying AI is snake oil, which I think is a rather harsh term to use for AI. So tell us, how are companies or corporates looking at AI? How much of deployment do you actually see in companies as far as AI tools are concerned?
No, firstly, Shri and Barun, thanks for hosting us all here. It's been an incredible event the last 2 days. Well, when it comes to AI, in my view, it's no longer a question of if. It's a question of when. It's a question of how soon. It's a question of how big. AI, and more specifically Gen AI, is probably the most powerful thing that has happened after the internet. And they say that the impact of AI is likely to be as profound as the impact of internet. They say that software eats the world, but now we are saying AI is going to eat software. And the timing is perfect. The reason I say that is after many decades, while AI has been around for more than 50 years, but after many, many decades, all the foundational technologies, what we call as emerging technologies today, are in place now. Whether it is your 5G, whether it's your edge, it's your cloud, whether it's your compute power, the chipsets, everything that is needed to make AI flourish are in place. So, as they say, you ain't seen nothing yet. I think we're just at the very beginning of that. And we at Tech Mahindra have a very unique vantage point because being a systems integrator, we come in at the front end of everything AI, right? We are invited by customers to do blueprinting, to help them with their roadmap. Again, it really depends on the AI maturity of our customers. There are certain companies which are leapfrogging. They are change agents. They are taking big bets. While there are some companies which are followers, then there are others who are laggards. Unfortunately, there's a research I read in, I think it was a BCG report, which said 2/3 of Indian companies are still laggards. I think most important for companies to look at is what is that use case that you want to build?
Exactly.
What is the business use case? What is the impact that you want to solve for? Once you have that, then you bring the process, the people, the technology behind it to make it happen and drive the maximum impact and the impact on your balance sheet and on your P&L. While I feel that many companies are also at the same time more looking at technology than a use case. And they come in from a different vantage point that doesn't deliver the necessary impact, right? Because having overload of technology without the right use case and the right business work doesn't work out. So it's a wide spectrum. There are certain companies which are way ahead. There are certain companies that are still struggling.
Right. So Harshul makes a very important point, Debashish, in terms of the ROI on AI. I think that's where most of the companies are really struggling because it costs a whole lot to train these models and then develop solutions that are actually going to generate any kind of return for the company. So from your experience as a vendor, do you have any examples in mind that you can share with our delegates here? Someone who's used AI and put it to really good use with good ROI on that investment?
So Sri, thank you very much for the question. I think it's a logical progression from what you asked Harshul, and Harshul set the stage very nicely. In many ways, your question is actually self-explanatory, right? So if you look at the hype cycle of previous technologies that we have seen, which have become pivotal in industry and therefore business, you'll realize that there comes a point in time when people start asking questions about the efficiency of the technology, one, and the impact of that technology in our day-to-day life, right? So I think we are reaching that point in time. It is not a question of if anymore. It's more a question of when, how, and where. Most importantly, where. And that's where the use case angle becomes extremely relevant. From our standpoint in Bosch, we are at a point where we are deploying AI inside the company. More specifically, we have also realized that we have to innovate with our customers, right? So this is not something where you will have the luxury of time on your side, right? So you have to accelerate innovation at a very, very fast pace. Therefore, we are working with our customers to identify the right use cases and the domains where we think ROI will be very high, right? So on the Gen AI domain, right, we are all used to a form factor of where you type something or you input an image to any of the Gen AI platforms, and we are used to seeing a return, right? We get a return from the tool, and then that is what we have seen in the consumer domain.
It's a nice toy to have.
Absolutely.
Right now, yeah.
See, that is the only form factor that we are used to for the time being. But we believe, on our side, we believe that the revolution is actually waiting to happen in the B2B domain, right? So there are two axes that we believe are going to be extremely important. One is the geopolitical aspect of it. Countries will interact with each other. The federals will interact with each other, and corporates will interact with each other. These are the two domains where we believe that there is a lot of innovation that is waiting to happen. And therefore, we are working with some of our customers, partners, ecosystem partners, so on and so forth, to evolve corporate use cases, and therefore we can deliver value to the end consumer. Right. So I'll stop here. We will kind of layer this on as we move forward.
Absolutely, we should, yeah. So before I go to Anand and Stefan, Ian, there's a question for you. I'm not sure if you already read this book by the Princeton professors that we're referring to, AI Snake Oil, where they actually give you a lot of examples where these AI models have actually built on faulty data. And we know that an AI engine is going to be only as good as the data we put into it, right? So from your perspective, you're a researcher. How do we fix these issues? I'm sure there's work happening in that. If you look at what's happening at DeepMind, Google DeepMind, the work they're doing in terms of weather prediction, even in terms of protein folds and everything, it's remarkable. So do you see this as the initial teething troubles of AI? Technologically, is it going to get better in terms of the data that's going in and the output that comes out eventually?
I think we already see that a bit. So I mean, I think with ChatGPT, the big advantage was not developing a complete new technology or so. It was really like scaling things up. And then even for researchers, it was really surprising, like what we get just by scaling things up. We are reaching, I agree that, like some amount where there's not that much new data coming in. It's also like getting more challenging because data, which is essentially, but is more and more generated by Gen AI. So this gets a challenge that you're no longer sure on what you're really learning on. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we're seeing that with this status now, we're also getting more efficient on like how to use the data. We're seeing smaller models having similar performance. And I think this is something where we definitely have to look into how to improve ML. If we compare it to a human, they have seen so much more data than any human ever will have the chance to. Right. But in a lot of things, they're still not on par. So how to make these models learn more efficient from what is out there is definitely currently a very hard research topic, right, and where we have to see how we can improve that.
Yeah. So Anand, that brings me to you because the high cost involved is in terms of the GPUs, TPUs, the cloud storage, and of course the energy consumption. From your perspective, you're a hardware manufacturer. How do you see the costs coming down in the years ahead?
Morning, everyone, and wonderful to be here. And Barun, great setup, amazing. Doing this in the middle of Germany with such an eclectic crowd. It's just amazing stuff. Just one quick position statement, Sridharan, before I respond to your question, right? The human mind is geared to think very linearly. So I always feel we overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and tend to kind of underestimate it in the long term, right? True. So my position statement is, we've been trying to mimic the human brain for a very long time. I've been in the compute industry for over 2 decades. We've been trying to wonder, the human brain consumes 20-watt power and does the kind of reasoning that compute systems can't, right? So independent of the Princeton study, great respect for people, there'll always be intellectual digression on these topics, but I believe that the train for mimicking the reasoning and the compute performance of brain, that train has already left. And the question now is to how to make the journey safe, secure, and worthwhile. Right. Back to your question on semiconductors, we selfishly believe we are the pizza base on which the whole semiconductor AI stack sits on. We have, if all of you are familiar with Moore's law, the industry has found ways to bring down cost consistently over many decades, right? True. Now, of course, because of device physics and other challenges, we've kind of hit a roadblock now, but a very interesting thing is happening. I'll get a little technical here, and then forgive me if this is not too relevant. There is a fundamental shift happening in how enterprise server architectures are designed. The traditional architecture would be a CPU sitting next to it, the DRAM from Micron or any of our peers. That is being replaced by a GPU or a TPU. And what we are seeing, just a plug for my mother company, instead of having a discrete DRAM, now we have stacks of DRAM. If you open up the NVIDIA Blackwell architecture, what you see is instead of one single DRAM, you have 8, 10, 16 layers of DRAM with some logic built under it. So the point I'm trying to make to you is the innovation is intense. The amount of innovation you're seeing in the compute architecture is intense, which is why the future for AI is so bright, because the building blocks are beautifully getting in shape. The cost is always high at the start because the industry is very sensitive to yield. In semiconductors, having a viable silicon is not enough. Yeah. It has to yield in excess of 99% for it to be cost effective. I think thanks to the whole focus on bandwidth, the fundamental shifts in server architecture, and the fact that most companies in the ecosystem are innovating so well, I think the cost structures will get better over time. And cost is a function of scale, adoption, and also more competition.
Improvements in technology.
Yeah, and today it's largely a few players kind of taking the lead. Absolutely. I'm very sure, I'm predicting that there'll be multiplayer kind of a scenario, and with more players, more economies of scale.
Right. So Stephan, you are someone whose job is to look at how do you use AI, metaverse, Web3 technologies from a consumer point of view, like engagement. How much of AI actually are you able to use or do you plan to use going ahead in engagement with your customers?
Thanks for the question and good morning. Great to be here. It's a wonderful event and also I couldn't agree more to what is actually said. So I would like to zoom out a little, and this is exactly what you're referring to. We are facing a new general purpose technology. So it was said before that there's a world without electricity, then there was a world with electricity, then we had internet, and now we have AI. And I think this is the big picture which we have to keep in mind if we talk about AI, because I also agree to your statement. In the short term, it's overestimated in regards of the impact, but in the long term, nobody of us can actually predict where we lead to. And this is a really fast-paced development which we're facing right now. So basically on a weekly basis, we see new developments and we see new enhancements and we see also new technologies coming up. And I think this is something which we need to keep in mind when we also think about how to leverage the potential of AI within corporations. And therefore, I would say it's important just to use that big picture to leverage for your advantage. And what that means, it means like every corporation needs to see in terms of engagement AI as critical infrastructure. There was like a time where there were no ERP systems like to manage your processes and to manage your workflows in the corporations. Mm-hmm. And now there's like a fundamental layer within your critical infrastructure in the company to leverage that process enhancement and to manage your processes. And that kind of layer is important for every corporation within the company also when it comes to AI. And that means that this gives you like a competitive advantage because then it's in your DNA, it's in your critical infrastructure and you can leverage the technology. And this is also what we at MHP suggest to our clients just to get moving. So you need to adopt the technology and you need to start moving. The train is not left.
That's good news. So Harshul, one of the ironies of AI is that it's actually eliminating low-end coding. Like Sundar Pichai in the Q3 call talked about how 20% of coding in Google is now all automated. I mean, there are no humans who are doing it. So in your experience, how is that going to impact not just the IT workforce, especially from an Indian perspective, but companies in general, like everyone? Jobs are at risk, without doubt.
Well, let me zoom out a bit, and I'll come to your question, but we should all understand that over hundreds of years, when the steam engine came out, when the internal combustion engine came out, when internet happened, everybody was worried. In fact, when internet came, people were even worried that how can you send messages on an insecure platform like email? And at every stage, there were in some sense job losses, but collectively, worldwide, the number of jobs have gone up. So it's a question about reskilling. It's a question about upskilling. Yes, there will be job losses in several sectors, coding just being one of them, call centers, and many other works which have repetitive tasks potentially can get eliminated. But with that said, we do not expect mass layoffs. Companies like TechM, and I'm sure many of our other peers, are doing trainings and upskilling at a massive scale. We already trained about 40,000 people in our company on AI in the last 1 year. We expect to train another 40,000 people in the next 6 months.
Right.
So we are doing this at a very large scale. So we have to move our people from standard coding jobs to newer age technologies around AI, around ML, around cloud, around data architects, data engineering, so on and so forth, which we are doing. And Indian services companies have pivoted many times, right? Indian services have been threatened, but have been pivoted many times. But
Jan, what are your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can only agree. I mean, I think, if you're not using the technology, it is a problem for you. But there are so much more new opportunities which we can do new things with the technology. We can more efficient. It can be also like more people can code because they can code together with AI. And they can be creative in new ways. We are seeing that already, like first with what people all started doing with all these Gen AI things. So I would more see it, maybe I'm seeing it too positive, I'm not sure because I'm in the field, but I'm seeing it more as positive.
Right.
And there's just a lot of opportunities out there which we should take.
Right.
And where there are things which we couldn't do without Gen AI, which we now can do with Gen
Okay, right. So Anand, when we talk about AI, we tend to talk in terms of an amorphous kind of an entity. But the fact is, every country probably needs its own AI. So we're talking about Advantage India, referring to the fact that we have an edge when it comes to software coding, IT services. That's a challenge also for Germany or any other country. How do you see India basically addressing the need to develop its own LLMs, LMMs? How do we do that?
Right, I think good question, Sridhar. And not a day goes by when we don't have this classic intellectual battle between should you create foundational LLMs from the core, or should we look at more of a tweak, calibrate by application, by business kind of a model. So I'll give you my position. It's not Micron position, but my position. I think a country like India needs both. I would not get lost in the either-or discussion. I think there's this famous smile curve that we talk about. Raghuram Rajan talks about it in his recent book. At the heart of that smile curve is manufacturing is critical for India, but R&D and IP creation is where we get the highest value for the buck.
Right.
You talked about pricing and cost structures. OpenAI has a near monopoly over how they create these engines, right?
True.
I think it's time for India, because of our skill and scale, both, to not completely ignore the foundational LLM. I know the data sets are limited. We are looking at language models which are tuned to our cultural nuances. I think that effort should continue. Mm-hmm. It should get a lot of support from industry, academia, and the government. In fact, there's one place where the government can truly, because our R&D investments as a percentage of GDP is still not the best in business, for reasons we largely understand. But if I were to ever advise the Indian government, not that they would listen, but I would suggest that enhancing the R&D input in the LLM space would be a perfect time to create true sustaining long-term leadership. While that is happening, Indian culturally and business-wise is very adept at trying to figure out a business model where from the IT companies to semiconductor companies, the whole value chain will find a way to go and monetize and tweak and calibrate models. So my net there would be, hey, listen, don't get lost in the either or. There is a famous saying in our Micron world, we say the genius of doing nothing. Our best products have come when smart people kept on tooling, retooling, and tinkering with building blocks.
Great.
And from there emerges great genius, right? I know it's a luxury for a country like India, which is still developing, but perfect time for me to go dabble a little more in that area.
So I'm down to my last 5 minutes. So, but Harshul, in 30 seconds, I know that Tech Mahindra is also developing its own LLM model called Project Indus.
Yes.
In 30 seconds, tell us what it's really trying to do.
Yeah, no, so we've built it grounds up. And it is for addressing 650 million people in India who speak Hindi. This LLM model built on about 4 billion parameters, as I said, grounds up, and addresses 37 different dialects of Hindi. It has got some rave reviews, and I think it's very important for country. And we also, by the way, done it for Indonesia in partnership with NVIDIA, and that's again getting rave reviews for Sahabat and the local languages. It's incredibly important for sovereignty of a country to have its own LLM. Yeah,
right. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears now. Come to the most important issue which everyone's grappling with, which is of AI. Safety, ethical issues around AI, the guardrails that we need to build around it. So, Debashish, what to your mind are the big challenges, and how can we build sufficient guardrails around AI, especially as it moves towards artificial general intelligence, which I'm told will probably match or surpass human intelligence?
So, Sri, I think there was this initial paranoia about, what happens with AI when it becomes sentient and that sort of thing. Broadly, from my standpoint, the way I see it, there are two categories of issues here. One is obviously the geopolitical issue, right? And the second is the socio-economic impact of things. In the second category, which is the socio-economic category, we believe that the initial paranoia is kind of waning down, right? People have started realizing that definitely new piece of technology looking for a problem to solve. So therefore, there will be positive impact on economy. Upskilling will happen, as Harshul said, but it will make very, very fundamental impact to adding to, let us say, not even gross domestic, but gross, if were there such a number like, global economy, right? So it will add significantly to that level. So there is no doubt about that. The guardrails topic, the security and related topics, I believe there will be formation of blocks, right? So if there is such a thing, then probably diplomacy, AI diplomacy will also become relevant. And the so-called socio-economic blocks, global blocks will figure out the necessary, let us say, rules of engagement, right? So as to engage safely, right? Okay. And still, I believe there is a domain which is continuously going to remain with human beings, which is about, let us say, taking executive decisions based on inferences.
Right. So human and AI. Stefan, what's your view on this? On the guardrails that you need to build as you build responsible AI products for your customers and your clients and your consumers?
I think in that regards, there's also a huge opportunity. So we are focusing sometimes too heavily on the risks of AI and not of the opportunities, because the technology gives us the possibility to focus on topics which really matter. So we are talking right now about repetitive tasks, and fortunately, and so far, also with AGI, AI has no soul. So there's no soul to it, and this is also like a huge opportunity when it comes to creativity and when it comes to focusing on things that really matter. I can give you just an example from Porsche. So we created a use case where developers are going to develop user stories and tickets in a dialogue with AI, and we could increase the efficiency in that regard by more than 50%, but also in that regards we could increase the development quality, because there are no misunderstandings. AI loves to write tickets, developers not.
True. Okay. So 30 seconds only, Jan. I'm going to let you wrap this up because you're an engineer, you're a researcher. Should we really fear AI?
No, of course not. I'm working on it. So I don't say you should fear it. You should see how it works. We should all, I guess, learn more about how it works so that we can estimate where it's helpful, where it's maybe not helpful, that we understand where it maybe reacts other than a human, and that we understand that. Right. So I think the understanding is important, and then it's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for a lovely session. Over to Meha and Padmaja.
And thank you for all for this discussion to all of our panelists. This really spoke about the transformative impact of AI, ladies and gentlemen. We have seen 2 playoffs already, but before we go on to the coach's perspective, can we please request on stage Mr. Ruben Kasper and Mr. Hemant Sharma, whole-time director editorial at TV9 Network, to please felicitate all of our speakers. Mr. Kasper, Mr. Sharma, please.
आगे सर
in this